The Gayatola? I, I don't know. Apparently, it's a thing, and we'll talk about it. An ice update, and here we go again. And a big boom. A really big boom. Welcome to the Jay Sheldon Show. What the hell? It's Wednesday already, halfway through the week? How about that? Oh, my. Yes, I still have this stuffy nose, congestion in my chest crap going on. Don't know where it's coming from. Nothing seems to fight it off. I've been doing decongestants, a little Panadol here and there, but nothing really seems to help a whole lot. Danny, good morning. Hello there. Love this title. I literally just left a Facebook comment before coming here and said, it's no longer left versus right. It is good versus evil. Man, is it ever. Check out Tom McDonald's Auntie. It says it all. Good morning, Marilyn. Be blessed. Praise the Lord to you. All right. Yes, indeed. Back in 1925, 132 nations signed the Geneva Protocol. Now, what is the Geneva Protocol? If you're not a history buff, I'll tell you. It prohibited chemical weapons and biological warfare. You see, the survivors of the First World War realized that there are some weapons that have got to be unanimously prohibited by humanity because they're so awful, they are so dangerous and antithetical to sustaining any form of normal human life on this planet. No matter the color of your skin, what your faith is, your beliefs, it doesn't matter. They could only be used to create the most evil possible. Now, in 1980, Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons recognized the same dangers and evil in weapons that had multiple warheads. Indiscriminate effects cause unnecessary suffering or superfluous injury, especially to civilian populations. That made them universally illegal. It was further strengthened and made more restrictive by the Convention on Cluster Munitions, which was adopted in 2008. Prohibits and makes the illegal use of cluster munitions, any weapon designed to disperse them, like airdropped cluster bombs, ground-launched rockets, makes them all illegal. And this has to do with every country in the world, or the ones that signed onto this treaty, which is a lot, if not most of them. So if these kind of multiple warhead weapons have been forbidden by international law for over 40 years now, why are the leaders of the world not completely outraged, screaming at the top of their lungs, completely unified in an effort to try and destroy and replace this Iranian regime, who are using exactly these kind of weapons? Let's forget about the theology or the politics of this war just for a second. For the sake of argument, let's ignore the dangers of Iran and the evils that Iran proxies are delivering on Israel, the world. Let's just look at Iran's behavior in the middle of war. Certain limitations got to be placed by the world at large upon any nation that violates basic humanitarian law. The goal of any war has got to be an eventual long-term peace. That would be the idea. If a nation is more concerned about destroying the world than it is about achieving peace, well, the other nations in the world have got to unite together and stop it. The entire world should be united in looking to destroy Iran for this is exactly what Iran's been doing over the last 2 weeks, especially and more extensively over just the last 4 days. Iran and its proxy Hezbollah have been violating all international rules of warfare. Obviously, they just do not give a shit. Simple, basic respect for life does not exist with these people. Like Hamas before them, they consciously attack women, children, the sick. October 7th, Hezbollah and Iran have been conscientiously attacking residential areas with cluster bombs as warheads. Not just Israel, although the Holy Land is certainly a main target. 2,000 rockets. 2,000 rockets have been indiscriminately launched at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. Not just American bases or facilities either. These Iranian missiles have targeted residential areas, airports, and hotels. The worst attacks obviously directed towards Israel. Just over 2 weeks since this war started, Iran's launched 2,000 rockets and drones at Israel, along with more than 500 ballistic missiles. On the surface, might seem like a very intense war between a couple of nations, not necessarily a violation of international law per se, but about 50%, 50% of those missiles were armed with submunition cluster bombs. Either when they land or get destroyed by defense systems, these cluster bombs disperse completely randomly. The conscious intent of Iran is to cause the most damage possible to residences and civilians. One of those cluster bombs caused significant damage to the Tel Aviv train station just yesterday. Hundreds of Israeli civilians severely wounded or worse because of indiscriminate and illegal weapons over the last 2 weeks. Iran continues to launch multi-cluster warhead ballistic missiles despite being prohibited by law since 1980. Insane. That is the result of a cluster bomb. At this point, it really doesn't matter if you support Israel or not, if you like or you dislike Netanyahu, Trump. No emotional attached to anything that happens in the Middle East. The fact that Iran is attacking Israel with these cluster warheads, which are specifically designed to cause multiple suffering, unbelievable injuries, it says volumes about the real nature of the evil inherent in this Iranian regime. They just don't care. We've seen this from Iran for years, especially in recent months. This is a regime that has attacked its own citizens with chemical warfare. Again, something forbidden by international law. They don't give a crap. Iranian government committed to death and destruction. not to ever achieving peace. They could care less, obviously. It is very clear that they have only one intent. They want to cause as much indiscriminate harm to innocent civilians as they possibly can. Not just Israel, all of their Arab neighbors. Anybody who questions whether Israel and the U.S. should have attacked Iran, I suggest you look at the Iranian behavior with clarity. No emotions. Keep your emotions out of it and just take a look. They use forbidden weapons, worldwide forbidden weapons by treaty against their own people. They've used forbidden weapons against their Arab neighbors. They've attacked Israel with no intent other than to harm and or kill civilians. This is the definition of evil. Evil. And it should force anybody, no matter which side of this argument you fall on, to take a good, hard look at the Iranian regime. Given they have repeatedly shown that they absolutely worship death. They're willing to use any weapon to achieve that goal. The laws be damned, humanity be damned, no matter how horrible. There is no question about whether or not they would use nuclear weapons. If they had them, you can bet your ass they would, without blinking an eye or a second thought. The Islamic regime of Iran not only accepts, but they look forward to worldwide death and destruction. They embrace it. They have used the most evil weaponry on the most innocent of people. They will continue to do that until they are entirely stopped or taken out of power once and for all. They are committed to the destruction of Western civilization. We've all got to remember that their commitment is absolute, total, complete. They do not care about who dies or what is destroyed in their attempt to achieve their goal. There is a war going on between Islam as represented, I need to make this distinction very clear, Islam as represented by this Iranian regime, and the West, which they are looking to destroy completely. The first line of defense is Israel, whether you like it or not. The last line, the United States. We all have got to be awakened up to this truth. Support Israel, Trump administration in the war. Very survival of life as we know it. Sounds like drama. It ain't. Look at the weapons Iran and its proxies choose to use. This is truly a war between good and evil. God protect us. From the comments, Danny said, I have to voice my opinion and say I'm losing trust in Trump. His price is going up. We're in this war that isn't ours. And he keeps saying how close we are to an end. Nothing is ending. I'd like to see that too, Danny. I'd like to go back and vote for him again instead of another choice, but I'm very disappointed. I know he's lost a lot of his base already. I've seen it from my friends. Yeah, sadly, that is a fact. I don't know. I don't know what's happening, what's going on. I don't have any insider information. Obviously, I'm just a small little ripple in the pond. But it's a mess. All right. So while we're making fun of Iran, let's not just stop there. Something I did not have on my bingo card The Ayatollah Khamenei. I thought about not covering this story, but I just couldn't. It's too juicy. The rarest of occasions, I will see a headline in one of the stories and think, well, there we are. One of the most interesting and or odd things about Operation Epic Fury, Roaring Lion, has been the speculation about who is leading Iran after the death of the supreme leader. And once it was confirmed that his son, Mujtaba, would be succeeding him, rumors were running wild about the state of his health. Nobody was sure if he was all dead, half dead, a quarter dead, fit as a fiddle, looking to relocate somewhere with maybe a few fewer bombs. Being the case, it's still quite a bizarre sideshow to the seriousness of this war. And the whole thing just got weirder. U.S. intelligence believes that the new supreme Iranian leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, is gay. Trump briefed on the intel tidbit last week, reportedly burst out laughing with the rest of his national security team. The irony is lost on nobody that Iran routinely executes men for being gay. Islamic Republic to countenance a gay man as a supreme leader. Talk about your cynicism and hypocrisy. The intelligence on Khamenei's sexual orientation just adds to the speculative frenzy about the leader's health, whereabouts. Is he dead? Is he in a coma? Senior officials will only say he is alive and in charge, and the rumor mill in Tehran is working overtime. I mean, a gay Ayatollah, if you will. Yes, it's war, but now apparently it's like a Monty Python sketch that pretty much writes itself. Oh, man. Less rainbow mafia note. The rest of the Iranian leadership is having verifiable health issues. The translation of this post on X sums it up pretty well. We've reached the point where if you're an Iranian official and Israel hasn't killed you yet, it's a bit insulting. Ali Larijani, the closest thing Iran's Islamic Republic currently had to a political leader, is now believed dead following an Israeli airstrike Tuesday. Just the start of today's good news concerning Operation Epic Fury Roaring Lion. Seems like only yesterday, in fact, it was yesterday, that we were talking about how Iran's regime loses from the topmost echelon all the way down to the basic street thug enforcers. If he's still alive, he will be presiding over some very small staff meetings. I'm just going to leave that there. Y'all figure it out yourselves. Gayatollah. All right, let's go with that. Oh, man. This day has been incredible already. Been a busy news day. Yesterday, 2 of Iran's top leaders taken out by Israeli airstrikes. Not long after that, Joe Kent. You heard this story? Top aide of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, resigned as director of the National Counterterrorism Center over his disagreement with Operation Epic Fury. His announcement came as a surprise to some people. Others, very swift reaction to the news. Trump addressed the announcement during a meeting with Taoiseach of Ireland, Michael Martin, in the Oval Office. And do we have? Yes, we do. It's a bit lengthy. I'll cut it halfway, but here's what Trump had to say.
I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that presidents should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if, I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash, hundreds of millions of dollars? You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful, they sent hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember? Right?
Yeah, we remember. Oh boy, do we remember. He then turned his focus on the Iran nuclear deal and why it was such a bad bargain for us, and returned to the matter of Kent's resignation and why, given Kent's apparent view on the matter, it's just as well he's moving on. So that is Trump's reaction. Doesn't really seem to care much. And so it goes. It's Washington. What do you expect? On the other side of the coast, Gavin Newsom tries to shame our favorite Nick Shirley for investigating fraud in California, which, by the way, as it turns out, is worse than Minneapolis. So Newsom tries to shame Nick, but good old Shirley smokes him right back with a brutal reply. You remember Nick Shirley, of course, this brave young journalist, independent investigative journalist, reported on the Minneapolis Quality Leaning Center, exposed a whole bunch of fraud, widespread in Governor Walz's Gopher State. Well, his revelations didn't just go viral on social media. They caused real-world consequences. Federal probe, a freeze on child care payments, Shirley testifying before Congress less than 24 hours after a rather heated online exchange between the investigative reporter and Tim Walz. The already embattled governor stunned observers, announcing he was not running for re-election. Really, Timmy? What's the matter? Shirley wrote on X, "I ended Tim Walz. Good on you." Well, he next set his sights on California. Wednesday, he released a 40-minute video showing exactly what he's found so far. $170 million in fraud. Fraudsters live in luxury, no consequences. There is a link if you want to follow Nick over on X. It's at Nick Shirley with 2 Y's. Says we all work way too hard and pay too much in taxes for this to be happening. These fraudsters have been able to defraud American taxpayers for years without any pushback from the public or politicians. It is time to expose it all and end America's fraud crisis. Man, is it ever. So far, 170 million in fraud and abuse from the Golden State. So, what does good old Governor Newsom's press office do? They put out. Wait, don't go to the X post. Just put that up there. Here's something that Newsom's office put up on X. It says Nick Shirley right now, with all of his cameras and things, kind of a Beetlejuice look. Hey, can I see your kids? Isn't that funny? That's the state of California, the governor's office, press office. Pal, your state is falling down around you. Careful it doesn't hit that well-coiffed hair. There have been unbelievable repeated claims of massive fraud under your leadership, Gavin. And this is what you post on your official taxpayer-funded account? Mocking an American citizen for doing legit investigative reporting. Absolutely shameful. Yeah, another the left can't maim example. Well, here's Nick's reply, which was very quickly posted. You can tell who the adult in this conversation is. Nick said, "You do realize I'm trying to help America eliminate fraud and waste, right? No need to try and make me look like the bad guy for exposing fraud. People are over it. Start working for the people and not against them." Boom. Now, that is classy. Pointed, but classy. Oh, and this man has the support of Californians. Somehow, it all makes perfect sense, doesn't it? More weird news about John Fetterman. I keep finding these stories, and I keep liking this guy more and more. Could we order up about another 300 John Fettermans, please? Senator Fetterman supports Trump and absolutely blasts the media for their coverage of the new Ayatollah. He's joined Trump in calling for the nations of the world and the American effort to secure the Strait of Hormuz, vital shipping route, supplies Gulf state oil to most of the world. He also eviscerated the liberal media for their unwillingness to probe the Iranians over their lack of clarity in the state of their leadership. He has been very, very vocal about exactly how he feels about this nightmare, and good on him.
And I largely agree with what the president said, that Iran has essentially been defeated. And why don't the Western medias just demand that Iran provide proof of life of the Ayatollah? Because I think the Iranians are doing kind of like a weekend at Ayatollahs, and they're trying to pretend this guy is functional or even alive at this point. And I think we just call them out and realize that they're a nation that's been effectively defeated, and they don't have any leadership. They're unwilling to even provide proof to refute that. So overall, I think it's entirely appropriate to remind the world that if you want their oil, you need to help us to reopen the straits.
Boom. Boom, boom, boom. There you go, John. Unbelievable. Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat. Reports indicated the Supreme Leader's been seriously injured or killed. Trump having said nobody's seen him. And Fetterman's right there, making no bones about the fact that he supports Trump. Good on you. Good on you. I never would have expected that from this guy, ever, ever. Mr. Thune, are you going to block the Save America Act? If he does that, well, American citizenship really isn't going to mean much very soon. What interest could possibly take precedence over 84% of Americans wanting U.S. elections to be reserved for U.S. citizens? Well, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, determined to continue missing opportunities, wants you to know that it's not his fault. Latest scene of this farce. Last week, Thune swore he'd bring the SAVE Act to the Senate floor for a vote, like he already promised to do at the end of February. But since he doesn't have 60 votes, he would be very, very surprised if it passed. The word saboteur comes to mind. Republicans could easily end the zombie filibuster, a piece of Senate paraphernalia, no nostalgic or traditional importance at all, by lowering the closure procedure to end debate and actually, oh, here's an idea, maybe vote on a bill. But it's even easier than that. Several weeks ago in Human Events, Connie Hare, or Representative Louis Gohmert's chief of staff for like 10 years, she wrote this: the Senate's standing rules have been dissected ad nauseum since this House took 1383, a bill already passed by the Senate, and gutted its text, replaced it entirely with the Save America Act, returned it as a privileged message. That procedural posture matters. There is no need to nuke the filibuster, lowering the cloture threshold from 60 votes to 51 to call up the bill. Under the Senate's existing rules, the message can be called up for the debate. After the two-speech rule is exhausted, there's no one left to speak. The bill is voted up or voted down by a simple majority. In other words, the Senate leadership could bring up and pass the Save American Act whenever it wanted to. And not doing that speaks volumes, much more than Thune wants to publicly admit. Hare says if Thune files for cloture anyway to resurrect the 60-vote hurdle, he is conceding the Senate does not intend to consider the bill. Because it's not about saving America, folks. It's about saving their ass and getting them reelected by people who should not have the ability to vote. From the chat, Danny says, speaking of voting, Mike and I made sure we voted yesterday to get Jelly Belly Pritzker out of Illinois. I hope so. They didn't ask for ID, just asked for a name. Really interesting. All right, a quick update from ICE agents. The illegal aliens they have arrested in the past 2 weeks. You ready? Convicted of, if you're writing this down and taking notes at home, murder, child sex crimes, and sexual abuse. Isn't that nice? And here's the little rogue gallery of scumballs that have been arrested for exactly those crimes: murder, child sex crimes, and sexual abuse. Wouldn't they make nice neighbors for you, huh? Yesterday, ICE arrested criminal illegal aliens. The very definition of depraved scum of the earth. Among those arrested, Sergio Colin Alvarez of Mexico, previously convicted of homicide and manslaughter in Crosby County, Texas. Why he was out and was able to be caught again? I don't know. Liberal judges, maybe? Likewise, ICE agents arrested Jose Gregorio Torres of Venezuela, previously convicted of coercion and enticement of a minor in the Eastern District of Michigan. Marvin Ronaldo Caltech of Guatemala, previously convicted of third-degree attempted rape, sexual conduct with a person incapable of consent in Dutchess County, New York. And we can't leave without acknowledging Manuel Punin Sucalunda from Ecuador, convicted of sexual abuse in White Plains, New York. Also arrested along with Yetzel Ramirez Zavala from Mexico, convicted of burglary with assault and battery in Fruitville, Florida. I didn't even know there was a Fruitville, Florida, but apparently it exists. Unbelievable. Oh. Hey, what else? You gotta love Canada. You gotta love Canada. Because they come up with headlines like this. A Canadian drag queen theater has announced a star-studded Drag for Palestine fundraiser. Yeah, they're actually having a fundraiser. The Birdhouse planning a very big show to raise money for the radical Islamist Palestine cause. It'll be held in Vancouver, British Columbia, scheduled for May 3rd, and will feature a performance by RuPaul's Drag Race contestant Eureka O'Hara. Isn't that nice? Transgender woman competed during the 9th and 10th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. She also competed on the 6th season, and she co-hosted the HBO show We're Here. Okay. Now, drag queens and many other aspects of the gay community would be some of the first non-Islamic manifestations that Hamas and other Palestinian groups would eliminate if they were given full control of that region. In fact, even as many left-wing gay people in the West see Israel as a target to hate, the Israeli government has a large number of pro-LGBTQ plus laws, and gays face very little disappropriation there. The drag performances at Vancouver's The Birdhouse, the first time to face any opposition and persecution, and they better keep their asses out of Palestine, because they ain't exactly going to be welcome there. That's for damn sure. Did you hear it? Did you see it? A meteor entered into our atmosphere, and Ohio and Pennsylvania residents apparently heard an enormous boom. Witnesses saw a falling fireball, and it sounded like an explosion. A suspected meteor entered Earth's atmosphere yesterday, created a huge boom that was heard and felt across northeast Ohio. National Weather Service said residents, meanwhile, took to social media reporting on hearing something that sounded like an explosion. I've got, I think I've got a few little bits of Ring doorbell camera footage. Hopefully there is sound on these. Should be coming in here in a second. Where is it? Ah, there it is. Look at that. Wow. But I don't hear any sound. I didn't hear a boom. Where's the kaboom? Anyway, just heard a large boom. Our entire house shook, one Cleveland area ex-user posted. Just heard a crazy loud boom sound in Lorain County. Did anyone hear that loud boom? A third person said. What the hell was that boom in northeast Ohio? Sounded like an explosion. Here's a piece of a dash cam. Wow, look at that. Boom.
What the fuck was that?
Okay, he got a little overexcited there. What the F was that? Do we have one that actually includes the boom? I did not preview roll these. Yeah, I don't... Oh, I know it takes a while for sound to travel, and they didn't keep recording, but man. It was the result of a meteor coming through the atmosphere. They usually burn up, but in this case, it was large enough that it made it through, all the way apparently to Earth. Sonic boom was likely what everyone heard and what shook some people's houses. Crazy, crazy. Little bit of excitement falling out of the sky. Cool beans. All right. That's it. We're done. We're out of here. Thank you for popping by. Be sure and follow and subscribe over on YouTube. We're live there too, by the way. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.